Hello Weiss players, this is Han from Weiss Academy. Welcome to the first episode of Trash or Treasure. In this series, we will be taking a look at under-the-radar decks in the game and seeing if they hold any competitive viability. We'll showcase the decks and give some insight on how they play. Let us know in the comments after the video whether you think the deck is trash or treasure. Today is just myself, but I'll have friends and community members make guest appearances in the future. For the first episode, the deck we will be showcasing is 8-Wind Data Live. Historically, wind triggers have been more of a cheese strategy and eclipsed by the release of choice triggers in yellow decks. However, the wind support released in Down 2 may give this archetype more of a competitive edge. I think this deck has the potential to be a competitively viable budget deck, as the core of the deck consists of entirely uncommons and rares. To stay in the theme of budget, my deck today will only use cards that are at the rare rarity and below, barring any foils I may have. I'll offer non-budget suggestions later into the video, and also talk about why I think the deck is good. Let's get started. Okay, so first up, we're playing 3 of this token. So this token is 0025. Its effect is when it's sent to the waiting room, you can pay 1, clock yourself to top 4 for a level 1 or higher card and add it to hand. It's kind of like a crappy Ricky, but if you're familiar with the set, all the good Rickies are ridiculously expensive right now, so this is our budget alternative. Next, we're playing 3 of this origami. During your turn, you get plus 1k power, and you can pay 1 stock and send this card to the waiting room to return one of your other characters when they are front attacked. So this is a JC profile, and it's very useful in the deck as many of our level 1s can be weak off turn, and you can use this to recycle your level 1 combo and get some card advantage. It's also good against decks that use combos similar to the Coronate combo from Hololive, as you can bounce the character they are attacking, which they've stacked their searches on. So pretty useful profile, pretty strong card, and it's only at the uncommon rarity. Next, we're playing 3 of this 00 yellow 2k. Honestly, I forgot which twin this is. It's either Kaguya or Yuzuru, but I don't remember which one it is. So you have 2 or more other characters. This gets plus 1000 power. Continuous, and when it's reversed, it's Rize for one of the twins. So you could either find a Yuzuru or Kaguya, add it and discard one from your hand. So we're playing 3 of what I think are the more important level 0s that you want to commonly see in the deck. Next, we have some 2-ofs, which are good utility cards. So we're playing 2 of this Miku. So I think this is a good pseudo brainstorm. You can pay 1 rest 2 characters to mill 3 and then draw 1 card, and then you can pay 1 to sack this character to top 4, I believe. Yes, top 4 for a date or a spirit character. So very good milling and hand fix in the deck. It can also get you some card advantage with the 1 draw. One good thing about this card is that it clears itself off the board, which is important for your level 2 plays. After that, we have 2 of this clean cut. So it's a 0-2k. When it versus opponent character, you can choose one of your other date or spirit characters, rest it, and bring it to the back row. So this is good for making aggressive plays at level 0. For this clean cut, it also has the ability on play, you can pay 1 stock to have it gain 3 bind power. Ideally, of course, you don't want to pay the extra stock, but sometimes it lets you run over really big targets that other clean cuts cannot reverse. So it's an interesting card, in my opinion. It's also one of the twins, so you can find it off your Rize. Next, we have 2 copies of this origami. So it's a drop salvage, and when you drop salvage, you could give a character 1000 power. Also on play, top check for a level 2 or higher character, and not character, level 2 or higher card, and you can send it to stock if it's level 2 or higher. So we do play quite a few level 2 or higher cards in this deck, so it has an okay chance of hitting. And then finally, 1 of utility card, just origami climax swap from the first set, because this deck needs its climaxes in hand to function, and you want to find the right ones. So this is really useful. So that's 16 level 0s. Alright, moving on to the level 1s. We are, of course, playing 4 copies of the climax combo, twin. So, during your turn, this gets plus 4000 power, so it's a very strong beat stick on turn, and when it attacks, you may check the top card of the deck, either leave it on top or send it to the waiting room. Climax combo with the wind trigger on reverse, salvage 1. On reverse salvage isn't the strongest climax combo profile, but I think this deck has a pretty good resource engine at level 1 with its other cards, so this combo is fine. It also has utility outside the combo as well. Next we're playing 3 copies of this twin. So for this card, actually I'll show the next card at the same time, because these cards kind of work together. So this one is a Brainstorm, and it's also Center 500, salvage for every climax hit. And then this card's effect is when you play a wind trigger, it gains an ability until the end of your opponent's turn, which is to give these plus 2000 power. So sometimes if you have 2 of these on your board, you can give this a lot of power and it can be really hard for your opponent to get over. And this card, if you have the Brainstorm, it gets plus 1000 power. And when you play a wind trigger, you can check the top card of your deck if it's a level 1 or higher card, add it to hand. And when it attacks, you can give another character, other characters on your board, x 500 power. So it's like Shimakai on tech, if you're familiar with that card. You can definitely max out on these 2 cards. I don't really have the space, and I want to play more level 0s. So if you want, you can max out on the twins, but I chose not to. Next up, I think this is a pretty important card in the deck. This card, I believe is actually kind of pricey right now. It's like around $5. Despite it only being a rare. So if you don't want to pay for these, if you're a really budget player and you want to stick to the budget theme, you don't have to play these. You can max out on these 2 and then play another card in the deck. But this card is really good, I feel, because it helps you find your wind triggers, and having the triggers in hand to play at the right turns is very important for this deck. It's a very tempo-oriented deck, so you want to find your climaxes as consistently as possible. And what this card does is when sent to the waiting room, you can top 4 on your deck to look for a climax. If you find one, you can add it to hand and discard a card from your hand. You can also send this character on stage to the waiting room to give one of your characters plus 2000 power, which triggers its climax fighting ability. So very strong card in the deck, highly recommended, but it does cost quite a few dollars, so if you're really on that budget, you can ignore it for now. Okay, so moving on to the level 2s, we're playing 4 copies of this twin. So it's a 2/1 anti-change stock bomb, and on play, if you have 2 or more other characters, you can also pay 1 to discard a date or spirit character to play one of the twin level 3s from your waiting room. And this card also triggers the twin level 3's off play effects, because they specify that if they're played with this card's effect, then they trigger. So that's really strong, and it's also a crucial part of your level 2 plays, so definitely need 4 copies of the deck. I'll go more in depth about how the deck works later on. Following that, we have 1 copy of the refresh counter from set 1. I think this is really strong because as part of your level 2 push, you want to try to aggressively trigger wind triggers. And sometimes you have a bunch of them stuck in your stock, and you also want to not die to your opponent's counter pushing you, so this is a good way to pay out those wind triggers and get that free refresh. This deck can also win board really easily because you're calling out multiple level 3s at level 2, and you're also winding your opponent's cards away, so pretty reliable counter. And then lastly, we're playing 2 of these for level 2. This is just to stay in theme with the deck. It's a pretty funny card. So it's a 2/1 event backup, give one of your characters 1/5 power, and when they reverse opponent character, burn 1. I think competitive wise, if you want to make the deck better, I would personally cut these, maybe play 1 more of the refresh. You can consider also the memory kick backup from the dated bullet set, and there's also the green realizer chip event, which is a 3/3 -3 soul, and it's easy to fit green into this deck, so that's a consideration as well. So those are the level 2s. Moving on to the level 3s. We're playing 4 of the Climax combo, and then 2 of the Wind Assist. So this one, on play from hand or with effective 2/1, you can heal. And on tap with the Climax combo, you may look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, send any to waiting room, and leave the rest on top. And you can also give a Twin Drive on the Climax combo. So this is how you can filter out your opponent's climaxes and Twin Drive helps you trigger crits and wins to help push for damage. Since you can get it out at level 2 and the Climax combo is no cost, you actually get 1 stock back because of the free Twin Drive. This is a very efficient way to aggro push your opponent at level 2. And then the Wind Assist gives assist 2k on play from hand or effect to 1 if you have 4 more other characters, blind stock 1. If you have 4 more other characters, you cannot bounce cards back to your hand with Wind Trigger, back to the opponent's hand. But instead, when you trigger Wind Trigger, it lets you spin a card from on your opponent's board to the top of their deck. So this is really strong because this gives your Wind Triggers value against 1k1 style decks where they may not have high costed characters that you want to bounce, but you can start spinning their back row cards, such as their Brainstorms or any other important assists, or cards with effects that may go to the waiting room. And this also helps pad damage since the character goes to the top card of the deck. It's 1 more character that's not a Climax that they cancel with, so very strong assist. You can consider playing more, but I think 2 is a good number. If you have both out on the field, however, when you trigger a Wind Trigger, you can actually trigger both their effects, so you can spin 2 cards from your opponent's field onto the top of the deck, which is pretty nutty sometimes. Those are the only level 3s we're playing in the deck. And then lastly, of course, we're playing our 8 Wind Triggers. So this is a level 3 Climax combo, and this is the level 1 Climax combo. Okay, so next I'll give some of my non-budget suggestions as to what to play in the deck if you want to upgrade. Or if you're not a budget player and you want to optimize the deck right away, these are what I think are the key cards that you should be playing in the deck that are kind of expensive. So first up are these 2 cards. So I think this deck can easily support the green chip event because you can play level 0 greens for color fixing, and this deck only needs yellow as its other color to function. So you can splash use of green, play this event, and because you can easily win the board with Wind Triggers, and you generate stock from your Twin Drive Mocha, you can support the chip event very, very easily. And if you play the chip event, I will consider playing some of this Kotori to help find the chip event. Next up, you can also play the level 0 double R runner. I think this is a very strong level 0 profile in general, just for any Data Live deck. It can help build advantage turn 1, and this deck needs to hold cards you want a full hand for level 2. So strong profile to consider playing. And then of course other cards that help you generate advantage. So these 2, so the Kurumi Rickies, right? So these are kind of notoriously expensive in the set, but definitely if you can pick them up, I would play these in the deck. Next up, you can consider 1 Memory Kick counter. Memory Kick's pretty relevant in the meta right now, I feel, so it's definitely a strong consideration. And then lastly, the User Early Play. So you can play some amount of this in the deck if you want, or any other level 3s that you want to splash. I feel it's not necessary because it's really consistent to find your core level 3 package, but having the option can be nice. So these are the key cards that I will recommend upgrading in the deck that are non-budget alternatives. Alright, so let's talk about why I think this deck is good. I think the deck is good because of the new Wind Assist, which allows you to get value out of your Wind Triggers not only against standby or board-based decks, but it lets them have use against more 1k1 like aggro or combo decks as well. I think the deck is a tempo deck that tries to play out your level 3s at level 2, and you want to close out the game as quickly as possible, and the deck can consistently do it within 2 or 3 turns starting from level 2. Early game, you definitely want to play like a normal deck. You want to build up resources while pushing your opponent for damage. You do want around 4 stock and as full of a hand as you can get for level 2, so make sure you're keeping up those resources. I won't go into too much detail because if you're a Weiss veteran, you should know how to play the early game. Let's talk about what the deck does at level 2, however. So what makes this deck so special is that at level 2, like we mentioned earlier, with your anti-change bomb, this has the other effect of on play you can pay 1, discard a character. If you have 2 or more other characters, play one of your level 3s from the waiting room. So generally you want to have this, you'll probably have the Brainstorm if I can find it. Have this, like you'll have the Brainstorm out on the field, and you need one more card. So in best case situation, you'll have the Kurumi and the Miku. So let's say you have Kurumi, you play out your 2-1, right? One stock, you pay another stock to discard a character and bring out this from your waiting room. If you have this in your hand but not your waiting room, you can just discard this for cost and then bring it out. And when it comes out, you can heal 1. And generally you want to do it again. So if you play another one, as you notice, we now have a full board and you have to play over one of your characters. So the reason why Kurumi or the Miku here is ideal is before you do this, you can use their effects to sack them off of the field to get value from them. So Kurumi can help you find your climax, and Miku can get you to another character. And then now you still have 3 characters for this effect and an empty slot. So with the second one, you usually want to get one of the assists, I think. So you get your assist out, and you have this setup, right? 45 stock, and this gets you 1 stock back, this gets you a heal. And you can play down your wind trigger. And on attack, with this, you can twin drive, and also check top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. And you want to try to trigger wind climaxes because you can spin cards to the top of the deck with this assist, which helps you push for more damage. And this is really resource efficient. You'll notice that after the combo, you'll have only a few cards left in hand, but you get some stock back, and it's really easy to find the combo again. The hardest part, I think, is probably finding another climax. But if you have another climax next turn, you're likely good to go because you can salvage the level 3 back with this. If you draw more copies of this, these are also basically copies of the level 3. And this is also somewhat hard to run over, especially if you win a bunch of cards off your opponent's board, since with this setup it's 12-5 power off turn and you do play a few counters, right? So I think this deck can answer your opponent's board, you can make your opponent lose resources. It's very good at pushing damage starting from level 2, and it can definitely steal games, which is why I think it's a competitively viable budget deck for players to try out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is this deck trash or treasure? Thanks for watching.